What's up, everybody? Thanks for clicking this video. Thanks for tuning into my channel. My name is Simon Hill, Black American from Louisiana, coming to you live from Budapest, Hungary, here for episode 127 of Simon and Akdi movie reviews. And who am I with?
You're with your beautiful wife.
Yes.
Akdi from Turkey.
Yes. And what are we reviewing today?
Today we are reviewing Disgrace.
Yes, this is a 2008 Australian, South African psychological thriller, drama, political piece, social piece based on an award-winning book by Nobel Prize-winning author J.M. Coetzee from South Africa. And this is our second time watching this film, which is based upon this story of a professor who is disgraced from his position, who ends up moving in with his estranged lesbian daughter who lives in the South African outback. And she and him both suffer under a vicious, brutal attack and robbery by people that live in the community, and they are left to pick up the pieces after this attack. We're going to dive more into the story, but that's a general overview of it. And I could say that I really enjoyed this film. We watched it the first time in Norway. We just got finished watching it again about 20 minutes ago, and I can say that I really enjoyed it. There's so many things I have to say about it, but what did you think about the story?
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed it more the second time around. Like the first time, I didn't enjoy it as much. It felt a bit like just too long, a bit soppy. Like, yeah, I couldn't get into it. But I guess like after that we talked about it a bit more, and since then, sometimes I remember the story and I think about it and I, contemplate on it, on its themes. And then the second time I watched it, it was definitely much more enjoyable. I was trying to sort of piece out the themes, why certain characters, do what they do and things like that. And now I can say, yeah, I enjoyed it. It's not like a perfect movie. It definitely has its flaws, I would say. But it was an enjoyable movie, I think if you're coming from a right place.
Yeah, this is the thing. This film is about, I would say, many different things, but I do think one of the primary points it touches on is the situation of the whites in post-Apartheid South Africa. And this is a contentious point for some people who are on the right, who believe that there is a active genocide happening against the white farmers, kill the Boer, brah. They believe all that is happening in South Africa. And if you watch this film and you tend to lean towards that direction, you might go away from this saying oh, that's actually what's happening, or this is kind of like a proper representation of the plight of the poor white South African now that the blacks, the natives, have taken the country. But I don't know, what do you think about that?
Yeah, definitely, because there were times during the movie, and we will talk about that more, where I felt like it's just giving this message of, oh, the black people are taking over South Africa. We, the Afrikaners or the white people, don't have any power anymore. And that sort of narrative, I felt like, was there a bit. But then also at certain points, you can see this movie and say, oh, this is like anti-white South African propaganda as well. Because the way the events are justified, a little bit for the main character. It also maybe says we're not really blaming anybody.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think this film can be interpreted as one of the most racist films ever made, or also one of the most anti-racist films ever made. It depends on your interpretation of it. And it also leaves you with this very complex question of how to make a society whole that has been splintered so much through years of oppression, years of exploitation of the land, and just general separation of the people. How can we become whole and one again when we are broken people on both sides? It's a very complex and thought-provoking story that I think, I haven't read the book which is based on, and many of the books by J.M. Coetzee are well lauded. And some people, when you were reading the reviews, said that the book of course, is better than the movie. But I do feel like, this is one of the few films that sticks with you in an analytical type of way the longer you think about it, or if you happen to see it again on repeat. But let's talk about the actors in this thing. This film stars John Malkovich as David Lurie, the disgraced professor. And I've never seen John Malkovich in anything, at least as far as I know. I have not watched Being John Malkovich or any of the hundreds of other films that he's made. Have you?
No, not that I remember. Maybe I saw him like as a side character or something, but no.
When we watched it the first time, you said, "Oh, that's John Malkovich." I couldn't point him out like from a lineup.
I know him, who he is, because of that movie, Being John Malkovich.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and in the poster of that movie, like, his face is there, just looking at you, like, being a snob. And, yeah, that's how I know, because that movie is on, like, every must-watch movie list.
I see. And we haven't seen it. So what does that say about this movie review channel? Anyway, there are other people that play in this story. We have Jessica Haynes as Lucy Lurie, who plays the daughter of David, who lives on the farm out there. I feel like her acting, honestly, was the strongest of all the performances there. It didn't seem faked. It came across as very authentic and real, especially post the scenes when she suffered from the attack. She really carried the film, I feel like, with her acting. What did you think of Lucy?
Yeah, I liked Lucy's acting, or Jessica Haynes' acting, and overall I liked all acting in general. Like, it was okay. Some of the side characters were maybe a bit iffy, but overall I think it was like really good. I just don't like John Malkovich.
Oh, you don't like John Malkovich?
There's just something weird about him, and maybe like it's this movie's fault that I got introduced to him with this movie, and in this movie he's just a very unlikable person. Right. Maybe that's why, but it's just right now I don't like him.
Yeah, I mean, his character is literally the most disgraced man, and a man that seems to be incapable of learning from his mistakes and taking accountability for his actions, which makes him unlikable. But if you're talking about John Malkovich the person, maybe there's something about him that comes across as snooty, aristocratic, maybe?
I don't know. I don't know him. I don't know. I don't like him.
I guess. I mean, just judging by this,
I'm sorry.
Acting style, I don't know if he does like the Anthony Hopkins type of like, aristocratic type of, bourgeoisie type of actor thing. You know what I mean?
It's just something about his mean demeanor and his face and his eyes. I don't want to be like a hater. So yeah, I don't know this man in real life, but there was just something like especially the first time I watched the movie, I just really disliked him.
Right. So while there are several other characters in this film, the film primarily focuses on, David and Lurie, played by John Malkovich and Jessica Haynes. So we'll talk about the other actors and characters here, but let's go through this story. So basically, the film opens up with, John Malkovich's character looking out of a window and, wondering, where the people are going as he's in this room of a hotel with a prostitute. And he's, making love to this beautiful woman in this hotel room. And he asks her when he can see her again. And she says, you need to call the agency if you want to book me. And we find out that he's a professor at a university where he, teaches, romantic literature, primarily focused on like Wordsworth, one of the famous, I believe, British writers and stuff like that. And in his class, there are several, young, beautiful women, and we see his perspective with the camera that he focuses on the faces of these beautiful girls in his class. But he focuses on one primarily, who is this young girl named Melanie, who I believe is maybe an Indian, maybe she's colored. I'm not exactly sure. She's very racially ambiguous and in some ways resembles the prostitute at the very beginning of the film. And later on in the movie, we see David, as he's leaving class, Melanie crosses his path, but she slips and falls on the steps. And he helps her up and says, "Do you want to go get a drink?" And they start dating and stuff like that. And eventually, David sort of forces himself on Melanie. And they begin this sordid, teacher, relationship, teacher-student relationship that is definitely unethical. So, what did you think of the beginning of the film?
Yeah, just like kind of how we're introduced to David Lurie. I feel like he's just one of those people that really sees himself up high because he's a literature teacher, because maybe he's educated in European standards, however like you might define it, but his life is really empty. Because he says, like, one of the first lines he says is, like, when he's talking about his students, is that they look through me, like they don't even see me. And it's like he wants to do more and give more to the world, but he's so, like, self-occupied, and that his life is really empty, that, like, he's unable to do those things. And he felt, like, I felt a bit pity for him at the beginning, you know, just in a way that, oh, like, this guy doesn't have a wife, like, he doesn't have any loved ones, he's alone, and it feels like he just didn't accomplish what he wanted to accomplish.
Yeah, you do get the feeling that, even though he probably has a good job by South African standards as a professor, he probably comes across like the guy, like, I was supposed to be the next Wordsworth or the next, I don't know, Hemingway or whatever, and I fell short, so...
Yeah, it's like he's just existing, like he's not really living the way at least he wants to live, I guess.
Right.
And that's what I thought of the relationship as well. Also, like, just him with all women around him trying to fill that void that he can't fill it himself.
Right. So he fills their voids with his penis.
Why would you say that?
I'm just saying. I'm just trying to lighten the mood a little bit before this film gets very dark. But yeah, in the beginning, he comes across like this type of guy who, tries to cover his sordid actions, like these lowbrow deeds of really just sleeping with anybody or anything with these fancy words and these complex phrases and this poetry. You know what I mean? I don't know if there's a saying in your language, but it's like he's covering his shit with perfume. You get what I'm saying? Like he's just basically being very gross, but making it seem like it's something intellectual or sophisticated.
Yeah.
I sleep with every woman and learn something from the experience.
Yeah, it's like, it's very, like, irritating to watch that, especially as a woman, because he's just like this type of dude, like, yeah, like, I have sex with women without their consent. So what? I'm just acting on my desires as a man.
Yes. Well, so he continues to act on his desires with young Melanie. Even though Melanie rejects his advances at first, he gets her information from the student catalog, calls up her house, ends up taking her out on a date, and they end up sleeping together more. Melanie is in school to study acting, and one day Professor Lurie goes in there and sees her acting, and he gets turned on even more by it and forces himself on her in her house. And it's very complex how they handle Melanie's rape in the movie, because obviously he has more power over her, but there are times when they make it seem like, she willingly goes along with it. What do you think about that? Because in that scene when he bursts into the house after he saw her acting, she gets naked and walks over to the bed, and I feel like they made that purposeful to show that. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the first time especially I watched the movie, I definitely had like the doubt of like, does she want this? Does she not want it? But definitely the second time it felt a bit more intentional, that this was assault, sexual assault. And yeah, it's like, even as a woman who's aware of certain things, the society is like so tricky in the way that it like penetrates your mind, that you automatically think, oh, like, she's not being raped, like, she's consensually having sex. And you kind of like just make these excuses for men. Even like from my point of view, I was doing that when I was watching the movie. But then I have to remind myself, like, there's a certain power dynamic that is happening, whether it's like, the occupational power dynamic where he's the professor, she's the student. There could be a racial power dynamic because she seems like she's racially like ambiguous. or that she might be like a colored person or an Indian person, etc.
And by the way, she's using colored in the context that South Africa uses it. Don't come for my wife and say she's being racist.
Oh, yeah.
In South Africa, they refer to themselves as colored. Us in the other parts of the black diaspora have been telling them, you're not colored, you are black. But they refuse, so whatever. She's just referring to Tyler. Continue.
Yeah. And and also I guess later on we learned that she's Indian. I don't know. It's it
complex.
Doesn't matter. She's non-white.
But this is the thing. I think the film doesn't want you to forget that this is a South African story. Even though the writer of this film is South African in and of itself, he could have placed this story everywhere because it is essentially the story about power dynamics and karma and man's nature and several other things. But he added this element of South Africa, the setting in South Africa, for I think a good purpose. In that South Africa historically is a victim of colonization and also the systemic rape of the women that were there, and all the women that we see who are racially ambiguous, like the prostitute at the beginning or Melanie herself, whether she is a colored person or an Indian, these are victims of the rape that happened in this country for a good few hundred years. You get what I'm saying? While they were building the colonial project of South Africa. And so when I'm watching this and I see David Lurie raping Melanie, it just reminds me of the history of white men having access to non-white women's bodies for hundreds of years. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. And that's also one of the power dynamics like that I was talking about between them. And there's also the gender dynamic. And also I feel like Melanie's role in the play that she's doing, she's playing like this kind of aloof, sexy girl. And he sees that and he gets turned on. And in my head I'm like, why? Like, it's not like she's a great actor. Like, we see her a bit like, being a bit stiff and stuff like that. So, yeah, it just feels very like, I don't know, iffy.
Yeah.
And disgraceful.
Yeah. I think, once again, this film, while not explicitly being about race, because the setting is in South Africa, a country that has been affected by the construction of race for so long that it's impossible to divorce that. Like in the scene where you're mentioning where Melanie is acting, there's two girls who are acting in this play. One is black and one is white, and she comes in as the one in the middle, the sexy ditzy one. You get what I'm saying? As the one in between both of these two people. So yeah, it's a film that definitely touches on those things without making it explicit, which I actually love. I feel like this is a part of black cinema without being a black film, if that makes sense. Which I find very fascinating.
Yeah. No, it would make sense. And I just also want to say at this point, I also had the thought of the professor as is he fantasizing about mixed race woman or indigenous woman? Is that sort of his fantasy? Does he get off of that? Because until that point, we don't really see him being intimate with a white woman, So that's also, I feel like, that was in my mind. I cannot disagree with that. I didn't think that, but that could be a thing, right? Because, yeah, we only see him interact with Melanie, the prostitute as well, who is very similar in character. Later on in the film, he hooks up with a black woman. We also see... You know what? David Lurie gets too much pussy in this film for us to pin him down. But all of his sex is problematic. I think we could agree on that. Yeah. So, but moving forward in the story, essentially, there's one day the professor is confronted by one of these students who comes into his office and says, so you're the professor who's been sleeping with Melanie. She told me about you. Stay the fuck away from her. Also, Melanie doesn't show up to the midterm exams as well. And the professor starts getting his car vandalized. The young male student that confronted him in his office is sitting in his classes now and taunting and challenging the professor in front of everybody else. So, the heat is about to come down on him. And so,
the one day, Professor Lurie tells Melanie to come in for the exam, and she says, I haven't done the reading. And he says, don't worry about that, just come. And so then everybody finds out essentially that, the professor has been sleeping with Melanie. The dad comes into the school and says, sir, you will not see the last of me. What you did to my daughter is a disgrace. And basically Professor Lurie goes in front of the teachers' council. They confront him and say, Melanie made a statement. Do you want to read it? And he says, no, I don't care. You've already made up your mind. And they say, well, we want to hear what you have to say. And he says, what does it matter? You've made up your mind. And he says, we have to tell if it comes from your heart. And he's like, you're going to tell by my words if it comes from my heart. Okay, I did something wrong. I accept responsibility. And that is that. And she's like, one of the teachers, the female teacher, says, is that sincere? And he says, that's enough. Let's play it by the book. And then he leaves and stuff like that, right? So what did you think of, the fall of David Lurie?
Okay, so that scene in the class with that guy, I guess Melanie's boyfriend, we can assume, or like his protective friend. I really like that scene because I feel like in that scene we can see the psyche of David Lurie. I feel like they're talking about Lucifer, right? And they define Lucifer as someone who just acts on impulse, but he doesn't know where the impulses are coming from. And and he also defines like Lucifer as a monster, as a thing that just like acts upon impulse. That's basically like David so far in the movie. Like he just acts on impulse. We don't know where his impulse is coming from. He seems to does not know it either. But then David defends Lucifer at the end of that class, and he says like, but as the reader, we don't judge Lucifer for being what he is. And I feel like that's just like telling us how he views himself. Like I'm just, and someone who acts upon impulse because that's my nature. Because I'm a man. But I should not be judged. I should be sympathized with because I don't know where my impulse comes from. So I really like that scene. That just shows how, just
the dialogue in this film, like you just pointed out, is so good at points. There are points that are cringe with certain words and phrases, but like you just pointed out, that whole dialogue between the student and David about Lucifer really pinpoints one of the themes, the major themes of this film. Is being yourself always a good thing if being yourself is harmful to other people, or if you don't see anything wrong with being an oppressor of other people, an exploiter of other people? Do you think David Lurie is a sociopath or a psychopath?
No, I don't. I do think he's just I think he's narcissistic. I think he might have a narcissistic, disorder.
I don't think he feels bad at all for what he did to Melanie.
Yeah.
Even after what we'll talk about later in this film, I don't think he connected the dots, even though he goes and apologizes and stuff like that. We're going to talk about it later. I still don't believe he felt really bad for what he did or could sympathize with other people, which I think, I'm not a psychologist, you are, I think that's sociopathic tendencies. No? Am I wrong, everybody? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, but he just shows one aspect of sociopathy and not the other ones. So,
okay.
I don't know. I mean, we cannot know without getting deeper into his psyche.
We also can't diagnose fictional characters.
Yeah, but I just, he's just this guy that doesn't have any empathy towards anybody else but himself. And he only cares for his own needs. At this point, I just wanted to kill this man.
Wow.
He was so annoying. He was so sexist. He was so, selfish, so arrogant.
There's a scene in between him going in front of the teachers' council and when he's discovered to be an abuser at the school, and he sits down with his ex-wife, and his ex-wife is David, was she in love with you? And he's like, don't be ridiculous, darling. It didn't go that far. And then she asks, do you think And then he said, why didn't you ask if I was in love with her? And she said, don't be ridiculous. You're 52 years old. You get what I'm saying? So there's like a detachment from reality that I think he has as well. Mm-hmm. It's like maybe he was a handsome man back in the day. Maybe he was able to sweep women off his feet. But I think there's like a delusion that he's also under, a delusion of grandeur, that he still thinks he's the shit. Like, he's 25.
Exactly. Like, that's what I was trying to say at the beginning. He thinks he's this, like, big man, you know, with big thoughts and everything. Every woman, like, should desire him if they only knew, like, what he's like. But if you look at it, he's just like a 50-something-year-old man.
Who's balding.
Who's balding, who's, like, not being taken seriously by his students and can't get pussy without paying for it or raping someone. There's
also a bit of him feeling like a relic of the past. You know, this film takes place, I assume, in like the late 90s, South Africa, only like less than a decade removed from apartheid. So he feels like, you know, who would have been in charge, the white man who would have been in charge and respected and revered in apartheid South Africa, you know what I mean? Like in the old days, he would be the man. He could have access to everything. In new South Africa, you're nobody. And in fact, you're subject to the whims of a black woman teacher who can look at you and say, you're fired. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but even with the teachers, like, meeting, a disciplinary meeting, I feel like they were trying to give him grace. They were. Hey, do you want to apologize? Or do you want to do this? Do you want to get a lawyer? Like, all this stuff. They were giving him
They were coddling him.
Yeah, options. And he was just so cocky that he was just like, no, just charge me. Like, what are you gonna do?
There is a lot of, like, I don't know, like, just
such a queen.
No, just white man privilege. Like, he just had that, like, this arrogance about him. Like, yeah, I did something bad. What you gonna do about it? Like,
even when he was talking with his wife was like, would they cut off your pension? And he was like, they're not gonna do that.
Yeah, he's under. Well, this is the thing. He operates under power, not just for himself, but understands, like, still, I'm a white man in South Africa, and yeah, apartheid might be gone, but still, I have protections that will make sure I'm good for life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So he's still going to be wealthy and have everything, but he still does not tolerate disrespect from women, especially black women. And I feel like at that teacher's hearing, when the black teacher said, "Is that your sincere apology?" He said, "That's enough, bitch. Shut up." Like, that came from the heart. Like, that's what really offended him. He could tolerate losing his job because he slept with women, but not a woman telling him that he did something bad. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, definitely. He's like, how do you say? He's looking down on them. Everyone else, but especially if they're a woman and if they're like a black woman or a non-white woman, basically. Yeah. Because he sees himself already above anyone else, and if they have even more qualities that are deemed as unprivileged in the society, then he will, I feel like, use his own power to even, knock them down. Yeah,
definitely. So moving forward in the story, as he's leaving the university, he's getting harassed by the paparazzi and the student media, and they say, teacher, don't you feel bad for what you did? Don't you feel disgraced? And he says, no, I was enriched by the experience. And one of the funniest lines in the movie, one of the students says, enriched? What does that mean? Like, little stuff like that. This film you can laugh at, which is not good. But there's parts of the dialogue that are just so funny you laugh at. Like, how could you not? It comes across like she didn't know what the word meant.
No, I think it was a rhetorical question.
I was enriched by the experience.
That response is insane as well.
That was.
I would be also like, what the hell? Like, what?
You would say, what does that mean?
I wouldn't say, what does that mean? I know what it means, but like... Yeah. I'm sorry. This is only funny if you've seen the movie. Anyway, moving forward, he decides, to pack up all of his stuff at his, little apartment. He packs up a few drab clothes and a copy of his favorite book and some music sheets because he's going to write a sonata or a play or an opera. And he drives far, far, far into the South African interior to meet up with his daughter, Lucy, who is apparently a lesbian who lives on a farm, and he's going to stay with her, as
till everything blows over in Cape Town. He shows up at the house, and Lucy, lives on this nice little plot of land. It's not huge, but it's like a good chunk of land. She's got some dogs in the back. She's got some plants in the front she's growing. And David is shocked to find out that Lucy has been living there alone. She recently broke up with her girlfriend, and she's just been out there. But she does have like a rifle, and she's got some dogs, and she's trying to take care of herself like a single lady out there. We also get to meet her helper, or a man who's helping her put together the farm and helping her have access to the markets there. He's a local South African man named Petrus, played by
Eric Abone.
Boy, that was
Sorry
excellent.
if I'm butchering the name.
Yes. So Petrus is like a, salt of the earth type of man, very, rough and rugged, and a man of few words and a big smile. The first time we see him, he bites an apple and puts it into his pocket, letting us
Who does that?
letting us know how like rural he is. And David is kind of shocked to see this, random black man in his daughter's house, but she's like, oh, don't worry about Petrus, he helps me with the farm around, and he's a nice guy. So what did you think about, the new setting of the film?
So like just meeting Lucy, I felt like she's just a girl, just like surviving on her own, nothing like too glamorous, and she doesn't have like the same ego as her father. And I feel like they're close, but they're like the first time we see Lucy's face and her watching his father come down to his apartment, like he has this kind of a she has this kind of like a worried face, not worried, but like kind of not pleased, It's like, oh, like
she forces a smile.
So it feels like maybe their relationship is not that good as it seems like in the beginning. And when we're introduced to Petrus, he has like that sneaky smile, But yeah, I couldn't really tell like what is up with Petrus. I was like, at first I thought like probably David Lurie is gonna like blame this man for something that he didn't do, because the movie was giving that vibe.
Like David's gonna be a Karen.
So I was kind of like rooting for Petrus,
Yeah. In the beginning, when we're introduced to Petrus and Lucy in the farm, I didn't know where this film was going, because when we decided to watch this the first time, I literally just clicked on it. I didn't know what it was about, which is how I jump into a lot of movies. And when I saw Petrus, I thought, okay, is this going to be the villain? Is he going to be the victim of some sort of unfair treatment or something like that? And, I kind of thought Lucy was going to die in this film. I didn't know I felt something tragic was going to happen, but I wasn't sure where it was going. But, there was a point when Lucy suggests to David, that why don't you help Petrus around in the farm and stuff like that. And David makes this comment like, what of the me helping Petrus on the farm? Think of the historical piquancy, which is like the historical irony or the historical comedy of it all. And once again, I think this film wants you to remember that this is South Africa, where the land was, historically taken by these colonizing British and Dutch invaders, and the blacks were forced off the land and put into Bantustans. And now one of the most contentious issues in South Africa is who gets control of the land. And that's where I think this film really starts to build up momentum in its themes with this introduction of Petrus and Lucy having this arrangement about land, which I find very fascinating. Any comments?
Yeah. And also, like, just to add to that, Lucy feels like she's also not too pleased about the situation, but she's accepted it. And then when it comes to David, it feels like he hasn't accepted it, or he doesn't want things to be that way. And he's that kind of a white person that does like passive aggressive things, He's not outright racist or anything like that, but he just has like certain comments and certain things that he says that shows us that he sees himself above the black man, or black people in general.
Yes. Now there was a conversation that David had with Lucy about his situation, and David does not want to apologize. They just wanted him really to do a public apology, and he could have had his job back. But he sort of says, "I'd rather be put up against a wall and shot." And Lucy just sort of like, "Oh, Dad," and stuff. How do you think Lucy felt about her father, sort of being a known womanizer? And possibly his womanizing was the reason her mom and dad divorced. What do you think Lucy felt about, David's ways?
Yeah, it's absolutely like disgusting. I think as a daughter, to be like, just to be like a partner in this, in a way, I guess, because she doesn't really condemn her father either. Like, she does make some comments, like, why would you say that, you're weird, and stuff like that, but it just feels I feel sad for Lucy in that situation, because you have, like, your dad, all snobby, acting like this is something philosophical, when it's not, and it's the case of, like, sexual assault.
But it's still your dad, and you would probably love him. You wouldn't dispose. Well, I'm going to ask you. Would you still love your dad if he was a professor at a university that had an inappropriate relationship with the student?
It depends on how he's gonna act later. And like the way David acts later is there's no regret. There's nothing. And it's like he's even like happy that this happened, then now he can get away and be with his daughter. And yeah, that's not okay. Like if there's no learning from it, then I would hate my dad, yes.
I think this is one of the missing... Man, this movie is so deep because I didn't even think about this till now. But Lucy, in a way, sort of accepts and forgives her father for his transgressions. She lets him stay in her house. She feeds him. She tries to give him a job, ingratiate him into the local community, and show him how things are done there. You get what I'm saying? Like
she tolerates his sexist...
She tolerates his sexist comments and his backwards way of thinking, low-key, even though he hides it and masks it with intellectualism. She accepts her father into her life, despite his faults. And later on in the story, there's another character who accepts a rapist in his family, despite his faults. And I love how this film has so much, like, irony. Like, you could say, okay, you did this, but what about this? Are these the same? Are these equal? And in a lot of ways, they do sort of equal out. Yeah, they are. Yeah. It's so poetic, I think.
Yeah, that's why I think it's so hard to say, like, what happened in this movie is, like, good or bad, or not good or bad. Like, of course, there's good things. There's explicit evil in this film. Yes, there is evil in this movie, but, like, it's kind of hard to, put a dot at the end of the sentence for this movie, because everything kind of ends in like a 3 dot or a question mark. Yeah,
it's kind of oblique. It's not exactly clear. Like it's has some gray area, some nuance in a lot of the things here. The thing with Petrus, going back to the story, Lucy tells David that Petrus got a land grant from the government. So basically saying he got, free money from the government to buy some land. He bought some next to Lucy's land, and he bought some of hers, and they're going to be working together on the land. And also, Lucy sells her stuff at the local market that Petrus helped her get access to, right? So we see in the next scene, the next day, like Lucy wakes up early in the morning to pick the vegetables, put them in her little van. David doesn't know what the hell he's doing, so Petrus has to come and say, "Move, bitch, let me tie these up for you." And they go down to the local market, and Lucy is like kind of loved by the people there. She speaks the local South African language. She makes a few dollars here and there and does honest business. And Lucy also says, she has friends that are humanitarians in the place. So Lucy takes David to go meet Bev and Bill, 2 people that volunteer to work at like a veterinarian clinic and stuff like that. And they try to help the local community that way. And every time, David goes to these places, he does not fit in, and he does not get along, and he sort of looks down on the people that he's meeting, whether he says it explicitly or just like, through his facial features and expressions and stuff. So what did you think about those scenes?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I like Lucy's life. Like, it's a peaceful life. It's like you said, an honest life. and she's just like chilling, and she's become part of the community there. So yeah, when I was watching this movie, especially I guess at the end, of course not the bad stuff, but I was like, I can live like this, like when I'm 45, 50, you know, just making money from a garden in the local market, and then that's all, and then I help here and there, you know. Anyway. But yeah, like the way they make her life look is cute and nice, you know. And David is definitely like this weird dad. It's almost like, you know, you start becoming one with the poor people, and then your rich dad comes in, and it's just like he's out of place. That kind of feeling. So yeah, like he's comfortable, and I also feel like he's constantly judging her lifestyle. A
little bit, yeah, definitely. I feel like, you know, Lucy's lifestyle is like what we would consider, you know, ideal in not only the South African context, but in any context. Like if you are visibly different from the people in a country, trying to integrate to some degree as much as you can while still retaining your humanity is what is considered the ideal, right? And I think the film was pointing out how Lucy's character is what we would hope South Africa could be like. You know what I mean? Or what many of our flawed post-colonial multiracial democracies could be like, where we can do business together, be neighbors together, live together, work together, love each other, and not have as much conflict as we have, right? So, you know, in some degree, in some ways, like Lucy is what's considered, you know, sort of like angelic and pure in this situation. You know what I mean? And that's what I was looking at. Like, good people can try to do good things in a community that has so much history of negativity and oppression. So that's what I saw in those scenes. And with David, you know, I think it highlighted how he didn't like Bev. He looked down on their lifestyle because, you know, he lives in this swanky apartment. And then when they show the scene of him walking into Bev's apartment, it's like musty with cats everywhere and like clutter and hoarding stuff. And he's like just like not even saying a word, not even trying to do anything to be friendly as a good guest, you know. So
yeah, definitely. And when like he's talking about helping Petrus and stuff like that, he's like, will he pay me? Kind of like jokingly, you know. And then with
but I think
Bev,
seriously,
also seriously, because like, let's be honest, he lost his job.
He lost his job.
He needs money.
And the only way he thinks of exchange for services is with money. It doesn't comprehend. He can't comprehend volunteerism. Yeah,
exactly. And when they talk about, like, Lucy basically asks him to help Bev in the animal clinic, and she says, you would have to do it from the goodness of your heart. There is no pay in it. So yeah, like, it feels like in his world, he's the only person that can take whatever he wants and act on his impulses, but not others. Yeah. You know, others are only supposed to be servants.
Yeah, and he's annoyed when other people act on their impulses, like when he's sleeping on the couch after a long, hard day of work. And Petrus comes in and turns the TV on loud and starts watching football and says, go.
He's a good man.
He's a good man. He's good. He's a good player. Yeah, like he gets annoyed about that. But when, you know, think about all the people you annoyed by sleeping with their daughters at universities. And yeah, like there's, once again, the dialogue is very interesting. There's like this conversation he has with Lucy where he says, you know, it's better to smother a baby in the crib than to nurse non-desires, or something like that, which sounds deep. It sounds profound. But if you think about it, it's better to kill a baby than to not do what you want to do. Like, what? Like, that doesn't... This is how you can hide your, you know, wickedness through intellectualism, which I think is a very important theme in this movie. So
definitely. I mean, David is like an embodiment of that. Yeah. And I think also during that time, she sort of asks him, like, have you always felt this way? about like desires that they should be just acted out rather than kept inside of you, and he says no, actually.
Well, there's so like the scene leading up to one of the most the denouement, one of the most important scenes is they're walking their dogs down a hill, and Lucy and David are reminiscing on their past life, and David starts talking about, you remember we used to have this neighbor who had a dog, and the dog would bark. Lucy doesn't remember, but he does because he was older. And he says the owner used to beat this male dog every single time the male dog smelt a female dog in heat, to the point that the dog, whenever he did smell a female, would duck and hide and feel ashamed and, cry and stuff like that, till he hated his own nature. And the dog, it would have been better for the dog to kill himself, if a dog even could kill itself. And he said, that's how I felt about desire. It's a shame if you can't act on your own nature. It'll be better to die. And she's like, have you always felt that way? And he said, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that he felt before that it's better not to have desires.
Yes. Because he's felt like he's gone back and forth with it, because he is an intellectual, like, at the end of the day. So he has had times when he said, it's better not to act on my desires. And that was probably, I'm reading into it, that was probably during his marriage. During his marriage at the beginning, he said, I'll try to not be a womanizer and stuff like that. But that didn't work out. And now he feels better acting on his desires. So.
Yeah, I mean, look, I understand that not every single person is, like, supposed to be a marriage type of guy, or, like, not every person doesn't have to care about, like, animals, or has to be a uber, like, nice person. And they might have different desires than the average person. But there's also, like, I feel like ethical ways to unleash those desires rather than, going around and sexually assaulting people. So yeah, I think David sort of like blurred the lines there, that he feels like whatever he does, it can't be wrong because it's from his desire. And if he doesn't have his desires, then what does he have? He has nothing.
Which is deep and philosophical. I think that's a very profound question. If you have these desires to do something and you refuse to act on them, are you actually living? Is this a life worth living? Are you actually being your true nature, or are you actually being somebody else? And if you are not being your true nature, is there anything wrong with that? Is there some type of transformation that we do have to go through to be our social selves, which is what we are as human beings? We have to be social. We cannot be unitary. So it's a very deep thing. I don't know how you would answer that, Miss Psychologist. I would argue that, yes, you do have to refrain on some of your desires and wants to be a full functioning human being.
Yeah, it's part of living in the society. You're not just out in nature and living on your own in an island. You're living along with other people that also have desires, that also have emotions and different things, also have families and love and hate. So there needs to be a certain boundary and mutual, like, respect, but also mutual sacrifice of your own desires in order to be existing with other beings. And that's why I think, you cannot act on every single desire that you have. But you can act on the good ones, and that's what we most of the time call love and passion. And maybe it's the love for helping people, it could be a love for someone else. Those are good desires. But
the thing is, the desire that David wants is one that is sanctioned by most of society to some degree, which is the desire for men to want to have sex with beautiful women. And is David a rapist?
Yes.
Yes. But are there variations of rape? I would argue yes. There's, of course, violent rape, gun to your face, beat a woman, take her, and then there's statutory rape. Then there is coercive type of rape, a power dynamic type of rape. You get what I'm saying? Systematic type of rape. I think David practices a type of rape that he feels like is a type of, that shouldn't even be classified as a type of crime in his mind. You get what I'm saying? And in most of our societies, like in Turkey and like in America, I'm sure, if a guy says, I really just like to sleep with beautiful women, most people will give him a high five, and most women will just give him a sigh, not a how dare you type of thing. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I definitely agree, because like I feel like at the beginning of the movie when he's talking to what was her name? Melanie. He says, you have such beauty, and beauty should be shared with other people, something like that. We literally have the same saying in Turkey, like looking at a beautiful woman is a plus point in heaven or something, you know. And that's just like such a problematic way of thinking, because then you're just downgrading this whole human being into looks or beauty or whatever you call it, and then that's like only her work.
It's also, taking away the, it's putting the onus on this person to serve others when it's not somebody's objective in life to serve others based on their objectification of them. You cannot say, oh, because you are a beautiful woman, you must date multiple men. You must sleep with them. That's sort of what he's saying. You have a duty to share your beauty with us. What? I don't have to do shit. I can say I don't have to do anything.
And it's like just switching the narrative. It's putting the blame on women. Like it's because you're beautiful, you attract so many men. It's because you're beautiful, all these men want to sleep with you. Therefore, it's your fault because you're beautiful. So it's not their fault because they're just men.
But going back to David's desire to live true to his true nature, in a lot of ways, his action is not considered socially taboo or sometimes even socially undesirable. For example, there are a lot of young women that would find David Lurie attractive. There was women that say, I want a sugar daddy. I want an older man that would take care of me. And he just hasn't seemed to figure out the same way Diddy couldn't figure out. There's people that will get pissed on and put on baby oil. Don't force anybody to do it.
I mean, that forcefulness question comes up later, and we will talk about that.
We will talk about that.
But like the difference is consent.
The difference is consent. And like we talked about at the beginning, the Melanie situation looks kind of consent-ish. And that's where the debate comes. We argue that's rape because he has a power differential with her that was set up by society. Professor, student. You know what I mean? Take away that. Take away the structure of the university, and David is doing something that's socially allowed and legal.
Yeah, but why would you take away that? It's there. There is no reason for us to take away, and the reason, or not the reason, but something that enabled David to do it in the first place is that power dynamic.
But I'm saying take away that because David wants to act on his nature, which is to sleep with young, beautiful women.
And he was doing that. He was paying them, and he was doing it. Like, he literally had no reason to do what he did. He was able to get pussy by paying for the pussy.
Yes.
And that's completely okay. And we hear him say, like, later on, that she sparked a fire in me. Like, what?
I guess my question is, like, if you had a client like David who said, I want to live to my nature, a hedonistic, sexual nature where I pursue young women, am I wrong for doing that? Should I even be here, Miss Psychologist? Because people tell me I have a problem just for wanting to sleep with young women. And I understand that in the film, it's not just his desire to sleep with young women is the problem. It's the fact that he uses his power in society to do it. But is that essential part of his nature, his desire to sleep with young women, problematic?
His desire to sleep with young, beautiful women is not problematic. The method he's doing it is problematic.
Okay. That's
where the difference is. Like, obviously, almost every single man on earth is going to say, yes, I want to date and have sex with beautiful women. Like, no man is going to say, I want to have sex with ugly women. That's
David might, as we'll see later.
That's completely, like, understandable. And same for the woman. Woman will also say, oh, I want to have sex with a handsome man, like the man I find attractive. So it's same for everyone, and that's completely normal. That's how we're, like, It's just that's how the society works and that's how attraction works. But like, how do you do it? We don't just just because we like how a person looks, we don't just go and rape them. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. Like, it's how he acts on his desires.
That's how he acts on his desires. Let's continue then, because desire really picks up right here. So while they're having this conversation walking down the hill, David and Lucy, they end up walking to the house, and they see that there are 3 young black guys messing with the dogs that are held behind the cages, and they're rattling the cages, scaring the dogs and all that type of stuff. And Lucy and David walk up to them and say, "Can we help you?" And the kids say, "Oh, we need a phone. His sister have accident. We need phone to call help." They say, "Why didn't you go to the police?" And they say, "There's no one there." And so Lucy puts the dogs up in the cages. David is still holding his dog, and he's like, "Lucy, I don't know what you're doing right here." And Lucy says, "Okay, listen, one of you boys, you come inside with me. You two stay outside." And so Lucy walks inside with one of the boys. David turns around, and another boy pushes him down and runs into the house. Another boy tries to get inside the house, but he gets locked out of the door, and David lets the dog tear his ass up. And David is trying to kick down the door to get into the house to save his daughter. He breaks inside and gets hit on top of the head. He wakes up, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 hours later in the bathroom, all bloodied and stuff. And, he's trying to break out. But he sees out the window of the bathroom that the guys are now taking things and loading them into his car. They got the rifle and everything, and they point the rifle at the dogs and start killing the dogs and stuff like that. David is scared. He doesn't know if he's about to be killed or not. The guys open up the bathroom door and they see David cowering. He tries to rush out to fight them. They trip him. They push him back inside, and they try to light him on fire. And they laugh as they try to kill him. But he is able to put the fire out with the water from the toilet. And after he puts the water out, his daughter opens the bathroom door, and we see that she's wearing just a robe. And we can sort of guess what happened if she's wearing a robe after a few hours of David being knocked out. So yeah, what did you think of that scene?
Yeah, it was definitely brutal, obviously, and I thought it was an interesting choice that we didn't see anything about Lucy in this scene. Because I feel like usually when a tragedy like this happens in a movie, they also show the woman suffering, or at least a sound, but we didn't even hear Lucy scream or anything like that, really. So I felt like that was an interesting choice, and I feel like they did that because they wanted to focus on David and how his own ego got a punch from this whole thing. Because it's just, after this especially, it just feels like he just doesn't really that concerned about his daughter, but also more concerned about his own feelings about his daughter, if that makes sense. So I feel like that's why we saw David's point of view and the way he was feeling so devastated about the dogs, and I get it, maybe he developed a bond with the dogs and stuff like that, but then we see him at the beginning of the movie as a sexual predator, and then we see this guy here now crying over dogs. So I felt like that scene had a lot of irony, but also just very, very intentional.
Yeah, dogs are a metaphor in this film that we'll talk about, or that I'll cover later. But yeah, him crying over the dog, and his daughter not really crying over him, made me really think what went down in that situation that we didn't see. And I have a lot of conspiracy theories in relation to that. But like you said, you brought up a very good point. We don't see what happened to Lucy, but we sort of see David go to hell, which I find very fascinating, because we see this fall from grace that happens to this man on a slow, during a slow duration during this film. Every scene, it gets worse and worse and worse for David. So if you're a fan of just seeing John Malkovich get punished for 2 hours, you're going to like this movie, actually. But yeah, seeing those, this scene set up with the two, white people on the farm and three young black people who seem like they have absolutely nothing, wearing the most disheveled clothes and having the most, messed up features because they seem like they can't take care of their teeth or their skin or their hair and stuff like that. It just made me think about how the fear of the black body has been translated across space and time, because those three guys right there look like the same type of guys that you would see on the evening news in my country saying, three young black youth were caught in for a murder today on the south side of Monroe, Louisiana, and stuff like that. And the same sort of thing, like, it was very real for me, because like it's like South Africa is really not that different from America in that case. You get what I'm saying? And also, it brought to life, I guess, this fear that exists in the minds, and also based on some events that have happened in South Africa, of white people targeted on their farms, supposedly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's what I thought of in that scene. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. And like you said, I think like it's sort of making this ambiguous. We don't know, like, there were three of them. We don't know if all of them raped her. We don't know, like, if they actually raped her, at least at the beginning. We assume just at the beginning. Later on, we hear it from Lucy, but like, we don't know how it happened and who actually did it. And I feel like that also raises a question of, like, how much do our prejudices go into play as well? Like, we see what was happening, but like, how much do we know? And what else do we assume, I guess?
I think it's very strange that Lucy opened the door right at the moment when John put out the water. It makes me feel like, and I thought this from the first time I watched it, that Lucy wanted her father to die, and maybe she told the guys, go ahead and kill him. Or something. I feel like that. Because, like, yes, Lucy had just gotten raped, obviously. And I understand somebody could be despondent and out of it, when they had something that traumatic happen to them. A gang rape. I could understand that. But if that happened to you and your mom was in the next room and, you don't know if they set them on fire or killed her, you would still rush out there to see what happened to your mom.
Yeah.
I feel like the lack of emotion she shows for her father made me feel like she didn't care if they killed him, or she told them to kill him, low-key.
Yeah.
Theory.
No, it was kind of all weird because, yeah, we see, like, Lucy later on, she is, like, emotionally traumatized and stuff like that, but we see her for the first time after the whole incident in her robe. And it's like, she looks like she just finished having sex with her boyfriend. Like, I'm not trying to, excuse rape, obviously, but I feel like if I got raped, like, at that moment, and then I also, like you said, I hear my father screaming, and I see them setting him on fire, I'm not just gonna, like, take a moment to take a shower and then go check on my father. And, yeah, like, the way she processed it, it was, like, really quick. And I think that's also one of the themes in the movie as well. Like, just letting nature be nature, in a way. Like, the fittest, survival of the fittest.
I don't know.
In a way.
I don't know. I'm very confused by that scene. I think the scene leaves it ambiguous to make you wonder what really happened with Lucy and the three guys that time. The same way it makes you wonder about, what really went down with Melanie and David, right? Because you can still have questions about their relationship too. And I don't know if the film is playing a trick on us and making us say making us have the reaction of, see, we still doubt women even when rape is so explicit. We're still doubting them. Even us right here, we're like, did Lucy really like it? Did she consent to some degree? We're still doing that here because we don't know what happened. And the way she acted afterwards adds more validity to it. But is that the film playing a trick on us?
I mean, I don't necessarily, like, I do think it's rape, and I don't think Lucy liked it because we know she's a lesbian. So that is that. But I just feel like Lucy kind of, like, how she reacted towards it, and there is no one way to react to trauma. So I get that. Some people overreact, some people underreact. Whatever, like, all of them are fine and normal reactions. But that, because that was the choice of the movie and the director to do it like that, I feel like that's also another theme of, like, accepting things as they are. And we see that throughout the movie as well. Like,
very good point.
Later on.
Very, very good point. But moving on in the story, right? They're just trying to rebuild. David goes to the hospital. He gets his stuff bandaged up. Yeah, he's been burnt a little bit, but he'll be all right. Lucy goes to the police and files a report, supposedly, but, it doesn't really get followed up on and stuff like that. And, David is like, telling Lucy, like, you can't go back to the farm. It's not a good idea. It's not safe. And she's like, I'm going to go back. I'm not going back for any type of moral reason. I'm just going to go back. You know what I mean? And when they go back to the farm, they're working on it, picking up the pieces, and John sees that Petrus has come back to the house, and he's got a woman with him, and he's like still working on his farm like nothing happened. And Petrus was gone during the attack. He's always around, popping up on the couch and eating apples and putting them in his pockets and shit like that. But when the attack happened, he's magically nowhere to be found. And so, yeah, John is very suspicious of that. And, Lucy is saying like, that must be John's wife. He's just going to be building his house and getting along. And Lucy's starting to like act kind of normal and stuff. So what did you think of those scenes?
Yeah, like, I feel like, with how the modern world is changing, like, David is so, like, what are you gonna do now? Like, you should go to the doctor, go to therapy. Well, he doesn't say that, but, like, you should get help. Like, how are you just gonna pick up and, like, continue what's gonna happen? And Lucy is like, this is my life. Like, this is not about good or bad. It's not about safe or dangerous. Like, it's always dangerous in nature. And that's just like, I don't know, I was thinking about that, like, in the wild nature, in animal world, nothing is good or bad. Like, we can't say if a lion kills a gazelle and eats it, we can't say that's bad.
But if the lion rapes the gazelle.
Well, no lion rapes the gazelle. That's the thing. There is no good or bad in nature. Because it's just animal instinct, it's hunger, it's, reproducing and things like that, and that's it. And that's like how the nature works, and that's how Lucy lives. I feel like there is no good or bad, things just happen, and that's that. But in David's world, where he's the professor and he lives in the city, everything is good or bad, and he has this like animal instinct that he wants to unleash by sleeping with tons of women, yet he's unable to comprehend Lucy's natural world.
Yeah,
he's so like paradoxical.
I still think there is good and bad in Lucy's natural world. I just think there's a different way of dealing with it that that David is not used to. I do think what Lucy recognizes what happened to her is bad. And, because she does cry real tears about it. We see her broken up about it and hurt by having her dogs killed and her whole house destroyed. But the way she deals with it is more radical than the way David deals with, good and bad in his world. And plus, she's a victim in this world while David is the perpetrator in his world. You know what I mean?
Okay. I mean, just because my gazelle friend dies, I will feel bad as another gazelle. And I would maybe cry. Like, some animals have deep emotions, right? Some animals have motherly instincts. That still doesn't prove that there's good or bad in that world.
I think
there is sadness, but it doesn't necessarily come from evil or bad.
No, I do think that there is a type of good and bad as in subjective things that do exist in this world, right?
In this world, but I was talking about just like, wild nature.
Right. there comes a scene later, after the rape where, Petrus is having a party to celebrate that he got more land from the government. He's going to get even richer now. And also the fact he's getting married and having a baby and stuff like that. So Lucy goes over to the place. She's dancing with, like, black guys there, showing, like, she's, going to try to continue on with his life. David is mad that, he's getting fed, like, regular commoner food like sheep and rice on a steel plate and stuff like that. Lucy sees one of the perpetrators of the rape against her. She goes and tells David, and David confronts him, and it is one of the guys that was there, but Petrus stands up and says, he said that he has nothing to do with this. He doesn't want anything to do with this, and you're calling him a liar and a thief, and it's not true. I think if your theory that there is no good and bad in nature, if that were true in this case, the little boy would have said, yeah, I did it. So what? Just like how David said, yeah, so what? There obviously is some sense of shame, of some wrong, some right, what is okay, what is not, because the little boy, even though he was objectively there, denies it. And also Petrus, if he's standing right next to the guy, and maybe he knows, because they're having a whole conversation in their language, if he's denying it, he obviously knows there's something right and wrong, too. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I get it. I get it.
But what did you think of that scene, though, when they see the guy there and they confront them and the whole party, all of that?
Yeah. Like you said, obviously Lucy doesn't want to cause a scene and, she doesn't want to also report the guy to the police. So we kind of see her, like, giving up and, I don't know, like, just sort of succumbing to acceptance. And this makes David really angry, but I feel like, again, he's very, very selfishly motivated, and I feel like he's not really doing it for his daughter. He's doing it, like, for his own honor and, like, his family's honor, trying to prove in a way that he's, like, a caring dad. He's a good dad, and we see that later too. Like, he's trying to prove something.
Yeah, that scene when he's confronted by Lucy, when he goes to call the police, is, I think, one of the best scenes in the movie, because Lucy is really pissed. She said, this is my life, and you're not going to tell me how to run my life. I've made the choice to live here. This is my land, and these are my people, essentially, is what she's saying. Like, this is the way shit goes out here in the country, in South Africa. I think she also drops that line as well, which is another allusion to the changing dynamics of the country, right? So it's very, very powerful moving point. But I think going back to one of the themes that we were talking about in this film, a racist person will look at this film and say, oh, look, these two white people are trying to be civilized on the farm, and look at those savage blacks over there building their shacks, having their, dancing get-together parties around the fire like they're tribal people, and look at them hiding criminals too. You get what I'm saying? Like, you could easily just read that scene and just code it in just fascist, racist, messaging. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, I think, like, one of the comments under this movie was like, oh, this movie is just, like, showing the weak leftists or something. So...
Because Lucy is, like, the liberal white woman. She's the stereotypical, like, I want to be one with the tribes of South Africa.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It could feel fuel for, like, the bigoted, conservatives that are racist and white supremacists. It could fuel that thinking of, like, oh, look at this, white woman being taken advantage, and then she just accepts it. Yeah, because that's how, like, the government is right now. This
naive liberal white woman, but that's from a lowbrow reading of this, because the way Lucy, the character, is actually acted, she's actually acted by a woman. She's actually acted as a character who is a woman taking agency back, dealing with the trauma, and saying that I'm going to do something more radical than just being a racist bigot who's scared of and hateful of black people after I got raped by 3 black men. I'm going to love and forgive. Which is powerful and deep, which is why every single revolutionary figure that's been powerful has told us to love and forgive our enemies. From Jesus to Martin Luther King. The most radical thing you can ever do with your enemies is say, I love you. which is very deep, and which is what Lucy is doing in this film.
It's so complex, and it's kind of hard for me to like agree with you, because it's not just white and black, but it's also man and woman. So there are like duality of concepts, and nowadays, woman has started to speaking out like about sexual assault and these sorts of things, and that is celebrated. It's like we're not silent anymore. We're not gonna be, just quietly attacked. And when I look at through that lens, like I don't like the way she acted. But then the other lens, which is like the historical and racial lens, and then what you say makes sense. But I don't know how to separate those two, or join them together.
I think you can find rationalization in the idea that Lucy is acting independently of any man telling her what to do. She's deciding what it's going to be. I think you can say that it's radical and feminist and empowering for Lucy to say, my father wants me to disassociate with these people that I've known, and my father wants me to be suspicious and retreat and run away, because that's what he would do. But I'm going to do what I think is best for me. Once again, I'm not speaking for Lucy. This is what Lucy is telling me. That's what she said. I can't help but respect it and find that empowering.
I can't say I find that empowering. Because while she might be breaking away from her father, she's also becoming under her rapist, and also possibly the guy who is aiding her rapist, Petrus. Or helping, or hiding, whatever you call. So it's like from one to another, like, so I can't really say, oh, she's empowering me at this moment. And that she's defending herself, because she's not really.
And this is, I think, a good segue into one of the most important lines that's dropped in the film. I mentioned this earlier, but we don't learn this until the very next scene after John confronts the rapist at the party. Bev at the veterinary clinic the next day tells David, listen, Petrus helped Lucy get into the market to sell her flowers and stuff like that. If it wasn't for Petrus, Lucy would have not been able to start her business or even run her farm. And Bev says Lucy doesn't owe Petrus her life, but she owes him a lot. And what I think what a lot of people miss and analyze in this film is, through a Marxist lens, this is the story of two people who own property, who are making decisions based on property, when there is another way of making these relations between the two communities, the white South African and the black South African indigenous people, have a better relationship to the land through communal ownership. But because Lucy privately owns the land and wants to have access to the market to sell her stuff, and Petrus wants to actually get land so that he can sell his own stuff at the market, they are forced to gel with each other, to collaborate with each other, and unfortunately, in the dialectic, one must dominate the other. And what is happening is that technically, under capitalism, there can be no female empowerment. There's no female empowerment under capitalism, because all women will be subjugated under men under capitalism. I think don't just shake your head, because you were arguing with me against this earlier. We were talking about this.
No, I'm not arguing against this. It's just not really a lens that I saw this movie from. Mm-hmm. But, like, it is a lens that you saw it from, because I feel like you are more, inclined to think about communism and, like... No,
I'm inclined to think about how property and money makes people act, which is our material conditions in relations to the world around us, and how we work and produce for ourselves and feed ourselves dictates our reactions to each other and to the world.
Yeah, I mean, there is a business side to them, but I don't necessarily think that's like an important part of their relationship and their character. Of course, they're like trying to make money, but I just feel like there isn't really like this capitalistic race that's going on, but it's more like a survival thing where they just need land and jobs to survive.
If it is not land and jobs to survive, because you said it's not capitalism, and those are the two main things.
It is.
Okay, but you said it's not. You said there was more to it than that. What else is there to their relationship? How would they have any relationship at all if it weren't for land and access to markets?
I said it's not a capitalistic race.
How is it not?
I'm saying that they're not trying to compete against each other. They're not trying to race against each other. The system is capitalism, yes, but it's not like I'm gonna like try to make more money than you. I'm gonna try to make more money than you. I'm gonna take your land. I'm gonna take your land. No, for me, they're both like entities feel like they are just people who are trying to have land, have jobs, and survive as best as they can.
Capitalism doesn't require competition. In fact, there are many times in capitalism where they don't even want competition, such as a monopoly. For example, Facebook has a monopoly on social media apps. Facebook, Instagram as well. There are many times throughout history when capitalism controlled all the railroads, the shipping lanes, the oil companies.
Yeah, but capitalism also pushes people to constantly compete with one another so that who's going to try to make more money? The harder you work, the more money you make, and that's capitalism.
No, we're talking about capitalism as the ownership of the means of production and land. And in this case,
I don't know. I don't have that much.
No, but that's what it is. It's
knowledge.
That's not. It doesn't require much knowledge. That's essentially what it is. Lucy owns land. Petrus owns land. They don't have to compete, but they have to have access to markets. And someone in the dialectic of both of them owning land, one of them will have to dominate the other.
Okay.
Well, you're just saying, okay, but you were arguing against this earlier, and you're still saying that there's some other thing that's motivating them to have the actions that they do with each other. What is it?
I'm not saying there's another thing that's motivate them. I acknowledge that it's money and business and property, but I'm just not seeing it necessarily from that lens, or that lens is not as important in the story for me as the other themes and lenses. Okay. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay. I just think, Lucy's decision to not continue to make sure that the police prosecute her own rapist is because she values her access to markets and properties, which I think goes to show how twisted and distorted her relationship to land and property is to her own self. I find that to be the ultimate tragedy in the story, and I think a lot of people skip over that. Lucy got literally raped by 3 men and said, I will not prosecute those men because I don't want to give up my property. I can't find anything more tragic. Yes, David is a tragic character who doesn't realize his own faults and how pursuing his own nature is twisted. But I think Lucy is guilty of losing her own nature because of her desire to be Little House on the Prairie. Tell me where I'm tripping.
No, you're not, because I just remember the conversation that she has with her father, saying her father was telling her, you can go to Holland, to Netherlands, and be with your, mother, and she was like, I'm afraid if I go there, I won't come back. And David was like, what's so bad about that? Maybe you don't come back. What's wrong with that? So I can see your point better now because, she has the opportunity to leave and move to another country, but she doesn't. Because
of land. She loves her land. She loves her land.
She can get a land in Netherlands and possibly be at a more privilege because Netherlands is predominantly white.
And developed as well and safer as well. So, yeah. But anyway, I just really feel like an analysis of this film in what is essentially a property dispute film is missing in a lot of ways when telling this story or recounting this story. And I think a lot of people just look at this film and say Lucy was a victim who chose to take back her autonomy. If you look at it from a liberal standard point of view, you just see a very traditional story that leaves a major gap in it and asks you, why did Lucy decide to make what she make the decision she did. That's the number one comment that a lot of people leave when they talk about this film. Some of the female characters' decisions make no sense. Primarily Lucy, in relation to Melanie and Lucy. Lucy did it because she said it explicitly. I didn't leave because of my land. I want my land. I want to sell flowers. Twisted. Anyway, moving forward in the story, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I went off on that.
No, it's fine.
Anyway, there's a scene after the party where Petrus talks to David because David is helping him lay down pipes for his water for his house. And David is like, that young boy, what's his name? And Petrus is like, he's a young boy. He says he did nothing about that. He is very angry at you, but it is okay. I know what happened to Lucy is bad, but it is a past, and it is all right. Lucy is forward-looking. She is not backward-looking, and stuff like that. What did you think of what Petrus said?
Yeah, I guess going back to your comment, he does have like that business mentality. But anyway. Yeah,
because there's a scene literally the day after Lucy gets gang raped. David is like, did you hear about what happened to Lucy? And he's like, yes, I heard, it's very bad. And by the way, tell her to be at the market tomorrow or she will lose her stall. I know some people might feel like, oh, Petrus, he's just a simple man. He's from the farm. He doesn't know what he's doing. That was a fucking threat. And I feel like a lot of people look at this film and they don't look at Petrus as a villain. He is a villainous type of character because he's saying, like, I don't give a fuck if this woman got raped. We got money to make. And if she's not there, fuck her. That's crazy to me. But go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm ranting right now.
No, I mean, I think there's that aspect of it, like you just said, but then there's also, like, the aspect, like you said, Petrus is, like, the man of the country law, like country as in not the town, not the city. So, yeah, he's just like, these things happen around here, and she's fine now, like, she's gonna be okay, she didn't die, so we just move on with our lives. And that was kind of, like, the energy he was giving. I was like, I couldn't really blame him when he said, like, he was a child, because I'm like, yeah, children do really bad things and they should be punished or whatever. But yeah, like, once again, we don't know the details of the exact crime that happened. We don't know if he was one of them because he was, I think, the little kid that got bit by the dog.
Yeah.
So... yeah, like, also, we don't know how involved he was.
There was a scene when Bev said, David was like, I was there. And they make this shot explicitly clear. Bev says, no, David, you weren't there. Lucy told me you were not there. Which makes me feel like, what actually happened is a bit more complex than just Lucy got, raped and stuff like that. And also putting the autonomy back in Lucy's hands because it is what happened to Lucy that only she will know. And she shared with a few.
Yeah, and I think that also, like, just further emphasizes David's selfishness with this whole issue because he's constantly pressuring Lucy to do something about it, and Lucy doesn't want to do anything about it. Yeah.
But, continuing in this story, one of the things that's very interesting about this film, as we're talking about David and Lucy, dealing with this trauma that happened to both of them, the film continues to show the poverty that is rampant throughout South Africa. So while there might be a scene when David has to work a menial job of burning dead dogs in an incinerator, or Lucy is upset that she got, gang raped, like, there's, like, the post-apocalyptic hell of modern South Africa. Like, you see little kids playing in a junkyard, a homeless woman on the side of the street begging for money, little kids as soon as they see a white man, mister, give me money, you know what I mean? It's like just the slummiest of slums while these two white people are just having, what I can consider kind of first world problems, second world problems, you know what I mean?
I don't know how we can say that with rape. Rape
Yeah.
is all world problems. But yeah, I understand, and I think like you said at the beginning that this movie is intentionally pointing out certain things about South Africa, and yeah, it does. And I think there's like always this hint to the history of South Africa and how, yeah, maybe now apartheid is over, but you can see a lot of black faces in poverty. So yeah, like they don't have a lot of things to work for, and there's literally like a scene where David is incinerating the dogs that get put down, and there are children and grown men who are all black watching him as if it's some sort of entertainment or something.
Yeah.
And then cut to the next scene, David and Lucy are watching a movie or something on TV in the comfort of their homes.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, you can see sort of the double standard, though both have pain.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Like, yeah, this movie shows once again this always back and forth, this dichotomy, this like mix match of like it's like this and it's like that, and are these two things equal? Like, yeah, that's a very good point. I like that. But yeah, there's there's a scene where David gets told his car is back and it's not, and he gets really upset about it at the police station, and him and Lucy have a very deep conversation in the car driving back, and Lucy is like going over everything, sort of like what happened in her mind, and she's like saying in the car like for men rape must be like killing an animal, because when you have a woman cornered, it's like it's like killing, and that must be exciting or something like that. And then she starts talking about those guys that raped me. She didn't say that explicitly, but like they must have they felt like debt collectors, and they felt like I had a debt to pay and they were coming to take it and stuff like that. And what, like you said earlier, David is telling her, you can go with your mom in South Africa, you can be free, but she's like that's how men are, isn't it? Like all this negative stuff that men do to women, they must hate women, isn't that right, Dad? And he's like, maybe. It felt very shady. But what did you think?
She also says like they came before, or they did this again.
Yeah.
Like they did this before, and I wasn't sure like if she's talking about herself, like they did that to her before, or about other women. I don't know, like if this is like something heard of, in the community. I didn't understand like exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, it felt like it wasn't really that unexpected for her that happened to her.
That was that phrase, they came 2 weeks before. If they came 2 weeks before, I would have been alone or something like that. Made me think, was this a planned hit? Did you know these guys before? Have you seen them before? What? Are you upset that your father was there? Because
that's
2
what
weeks
I thought.
2 weeks ago, I would have been alone and you wouldn't have known about this, and I could have gone on my life without telling you exactly what happened. So many things, right?
Yeah. But yeah, like that thing about Lucy saying, raping a woman or holding down a woman, that must be exciting. That must be like killing. And sort of like how David responds to that is like he says, perhaps, sometimes, for some men, And we know that's you, David.
Yeah.
Like we know that's him that also took pleasure when he drugged I forgot her name. Melanie, or we assume maybe he drugged Melanie or forced Melanie into having sex with him. And I feel like that's the point that sort of like clicks for David a little bit, because now like he can see how that pain is inflicted on the victim, the woman. But yeah, like it's very real. Also, just like as a woman, it's very real to be like loving men, like our husbands, our fathers, our brothers, our uncles, whoever, and then also seeing lots of violence from men towards women around the world, especially from like family members. When you look at woman being raped and killed and all of that stuff, it's usually people that they know.
Yeah.
It's usually their boyfriends, their fathers, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, like, I think just living in a world like this is definitely weird.
Yeah, it's complex. It's a very complex, weird thing. And I felt like in that conversation, she was trying to, sort of like give her dad a lesson. You know what I mean? Like, you feel this bad about me, what happened to me, but what about that girl that you took advantage of at your school? You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Because there's no way Lucy doesn't see the parallels between what happened to her and what happened to that girl that her father, took advantage of, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's what leads to the very next scene. David drives back to Cape Town, South Africa, and, goes to apologize to Melanie's father. And he sits down in the house. Actually, Melanie's sister lets her in the house, and we were like, oh no.
Run, Desiree.
That man's a predator. His name should be registered on Neighborhood Watch. Just hide your little sister from him, Melanie. Hide your little sister. But yeah, basically, Mr. Melanie comes into the house, whatever, and he's like, have you no shame, sir? May I pronounce the name of God? What is happening to you is a judgment from God. I have nothing to do with this, and I cannot intervene in your affairs in the university. And this guy goes off on kind of like a little speech, whatever. And David is like, I didn't come to help me get my job back. And so he leaves. He's about to leave the house, but then he walks back into the house and bows down in front of Melanie's mother and sister, like a Buddhist or like a Muslim or something like that, and then says, forgive me for what I have done, and leaves, right? And what I thought about that scene is just like, earlier he got mad at Petrus or at Lucy because Petrus was all up in his daughter's house. And he's like, can he just come and go as he pleases? And Petrus is tied to the rapist of his daughter. But meanwhile, he sort of does the same exact fucking thing. He walks all up in this man's house like he owns the place.
Yeah.
He walks all up in the place like he owns it. After he just
the little girl's room.
Goes into the little girl's room and just, starts doing weird Muslim prayers and shit like that. And is acting like he owns the place too. Like, the irony and the hypocrisy of David knows no ends. But I think you have to kind of be aware of that to catch those little things, I think. But what did you think?
I think also, like, just his motivations didn't feel pure because it felt like it was once again coming from this place like, oh, I'm like a educated, like, higher human being, I'm not like these other men who raped my daughter and then like don't even give a shit about it. But I care.
I care so much.
So like, I'm gonna go and apologize because I care and I've learned my lesson.
Yes.
But it just wasn't sincere. And even though like the father, what he was accusing David of, he wasn't thinking of that. Obviously, he wasn't trying to get his job back. But I think he also realized, like, he can't just apologize his way out of this.
Yeah, I think also what the father's speech was, because he kept mentioning God. And that was, like, the really first time that God was mentioned in this moral story. Because a lot of ways what David is going through is the morality of man. And I think maybe in the book it's different. That the father goes off and says, you need to pray, you need to repent, you need to come to Jesus. I don't know. And David's like, I don't want any of that, bruh. I don't want none of that. I just want to feel good right now. I want to feel superior to you. Let me bow down in front of your wife. Which kind of was like a rape again, too. Because, like, he didn't really make amends with the father. And then he just goes to where the women are in the house and does this weird posture in front of them that none of them asked for and sort of forced himself upon them again. Yeah. It felt rapey again. Like he still did not learn.
Yeah. He
so,
did not.
I don't know. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, okay, I'm going to be honest. I also couldn't help myself but think because their family looks like they're not like white or they're non-white. Mm-hmm. And like the way this father was so patient and didn't attack this man. Yeah. And like And the way he spoke to him as well was so respectful. Like, even though he was really mad and really angry, probably, it just, I couldn't help but think that there's also, like, some racial dynamic here as well. That, like, he has to hold himself to a certain, like, place.
Yeah.
And cannot really attack this white man.
Yeah, exactly. There is that. I think so, too. Definitely there's a level of, like, still, David is untouchable to some degree.
Yeah.
He still has that white aura privilege around him.
Yeah, like white professor at a university, like everything about him.
Yeah, probably still has money, probably still has tenure. You get what I'm saying? Like, there's still that around him. But, that scene was, it's still an important scene, a complex scene, but I think it also goes to show how David still has not learned. And I don't think... what I think also makes this movie very moving is that the character still doesn't learn, but you could make the argument that David is living to his true nature, and maybe he's misunderstood. And because of the social pressures around him, he cannot really be his full self, and we won't understand his full self, but he's a man trying to live as authentically as he can. I think you can still observe the film that way, because you also do the same thing with Lucy. Most people watch this film and say Lucy at least kept it real. She said, "I'm gonna live my life the way I want to live my life." You feel me? I don't know. Go ahead.
I mean, I still think he's very selfish. Like, the reason he's doing this is because he wants to make himself feel better.
Yeah.
And
But it does make the movie suffer because the main character is so unlikable.
Yeah.
And that's such a weird thing, because, like, to tell the story, the person has to be unlikable. But
yeah, I mean, at this point, I think everyone's over it. Like, just David, stop.
Yeah,
just
stop.
Go and kill yourself.
But then comes one of the big surprises in the film. So David comes back from Cape Town. He drives all the way back out to wherever his daughter lives in South Africa, and she tells him, "Daddy, I'm pregnant." And he said, "What?" And she said, "I'm keeping the baby." And he's like, "What?" He's like, "Oh, I support you in whatever you do." And she's like, "Yes, I'm going to do this." And he's like, "So you're going to keep the baby of those 3 men that raped you, and one of them is next door being protected by Petrus." And she's like, "Yes." And he's like, "I have to go outside." And he goes outside and he starts crying. He starts crying his eyes out. My God. And we also find out that the guy who raped her, one of the guys, the young boys that we saw at the party, his name is Pollux, and he's related to Petrus's wife. So basically it's his, Petrus's brother-in-law. Mm-hmm. What did you think of that scene, the big reveal that Lucy was pregnant?
I hate to say it, but, like, the way Lucy... I don't blame Lucy for keeping the baby. Obviously, like, she's a woman and she can do whatever she wants with her body. But just sort of, like, making that choice, it did give me a bit of an ick. I have to say. Because I don't know how comfortable I would be in that situation. But once again, like, I don't necessarily see her as, like, this, conservative woman. She is supposed to be a liberal woman. So I don't judge her too much for that. But just like that comment was like, am I supposed to judge the child because of who the father is? Like, no, of course not, but it's gonna have a certain effect on the child. Anyway, going back to David, I feel like he's trying to look like he's accepting of his daughter's lifestyle. In the surface, because he's trying to play it nice with his daughter so that she doesn't push him further away. But inside, he's still, like, crumbling, and he's also, like, still going around, like, talking to Petrus and looking around and still trying to, like, plot things that would change his daughter's mind.
I think that pain he felt was a real sincere pain, because I do think David loves Lucy. Yeah. I don't think Lucy loves David as much as he might love her. I don't think she loves her father that much. But to hear your daughter got raped and now your grandson or granddaughter is going to be her victimizer's baby, tying you forever to them, and your daughter wants to accept them. That's a hard pill to swallow. And I think this film plays with the ultimate fear of the white man and the white supremacists, which is why I think they go so hard for South Africa. Because this film touches on every single fear point that gets them triggered enough to fly in 10,000 white South Africans. You know what I'm saying? Oh, your white women are going to get raped. They're going to take your land. They're going to kill you and set you on fire. Like, it does everything. And that was, when that twist happened, I was like, whoa, okay, this film is going there. And my first reaction to that, to when Lucy said she was going to keep the baby, is that this film is trying to tell us that for South Africa to be whole, it will be a forceful union of the colonizer and the colonized. And for every other part of the world that was colonized, that is what happened, essentially. The European man came into Brazil, came into Colombia, Mexico, and said, give us your women, we are making something new here. This is the new project. Through forced rape and killing of your men, we will create the Australian. We will make the Mexican, the Brazilian, the Dominican Republican. But in South Africa, because of apartheid and because of the nature of how this country was set up, the forced mixing of the native and the colonizer did not happen. And now that the country is back in the hands of the indigenous people to make the country whole, as what some people say, a country has to be whole if a nation is one, has one blood. It's not what I believe. It's just what a lot of people believe. Then the whites will have to be forced to breed with the South Africans. That's what I think the film is pointing at. And I think that's what pisses off the white supremacists and the racists who just say, look at the niggas raping white women and shit like that. You hate that because that's what has to be done to make this shit whole. That's what I think. Low-key, the film was trying to say with that. What do you think? I'm sorry, that was my hottest take of all fucking time. No. Basically, you gotta rape white women to make South Africa better, is essentially what I think it was trying to say. I'm sorry.
Jesus, that sounds so bad.
It sounds crazy, but to make Brazil whole, you have to rape black women.
Yeah, I know. I understand. And, like, I can see that point of view. The part just that I don't like is either way, women are, like, the sacrifice, and women are the commodity to be used and abused, and that's what like just doesn't sit right with me. But that's because most of the time it's for the benefit of the men, and most of the time through this abuse, women don't get shit at the end of the day. So that's what like is irritating about your defense.
I know it's irritating about my defense, but you know what's irritating? This idea right here, Ham's redemption from Brazil, or in Australia. In Australia, when they were trying to whiten the Aboriginal, and they created whole posters for it, saying this is what we have to do to make the Australian and make the Brazilian. Through each successive generation of rape, we will create a new people. That's what I think the film is trying to point at. And I know it's frustrating to say, oh, women are the subject and the objects to be used in the process of nation building, or in the process of making land reform whole or possible. I know that's annoying, but it's been more than annoying on this end. You feel me? It's been more than annoying on this side. You get what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying. I just think when these two things collide, race and gender, it just creates room for a lot of questions and a lot of uncertainty, and also a lot of injustice for certain dualities. And yeah, that's I think it's I just really hate the fact that when these two things come together, there has to be one or the other that should be sacrificed.
If you know, you know. I'm just saying, if you know, you know.
I know, and I understand.
I know. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking to the audience, to the people out there. I am not condoning white genocide or kill the Boer, even though it's a bop. I just feel like that's what I think the film is getting at. That's why white racists hate this film, And that's why I think this film deserves critical analysis, because it makes you ask deep questions about nationhood, identity, and belonging. In every other country I'm sorry, I'm going off on a rant, but in every other post-colonial country, such as in Hungary right here, the celebration of kicking out the exploiter is a part of the national identity. Here in Hungary, in the national anthem, they say we kicked out the Turks and saved our land from the Ottomans and shit like that. And in South Africa, you have still the remnants of colonialism right there and present and prevalent in your face. And they refuse to meld in with the people. In fact, they want to import their social structures and their society into this land. So if we believe in nationhood, as many people do, then why don't the South Africans have the right to exercise their ideal of what the nation should be, which is we are one race, and we will force you to be our race, as every other country does. As Ataturk said, to be a Turk, you must be a Turk. To be in Turkey, you must be a Turk. Am I wrong? Is that not what you guys said?
No.
What did he say?
It says if you're living in this country and if you're, profiting this country, then you're a Turkish person.
You're profiting in this country, you must be a Turk. You must be a Turkish person.
Like, you have to speak the language, and you have to work in this country, and you also have to pay taxes and all that stuff that profits the country. If that's that, then you are a Turkish person.
But as we read in Murat Ergin's book, Is the Turk a White Man?, Ataturk still also tried to get his own daughter to go to Switzerland to prove that the Turks were white, to try to force that the nation's identity is still centered around whiteness.
Yeah. I'm not denying that.
So we're not denying that. We are not denying that. The point is, I'm sorry, I went off on a big tangent here. I just thought that was the most fascinating aspect of the film. It's the most fascinating and revolutionary aspect of the film that makes us ask questions. And I just want to say this: I do not agree with that idea, because I disavow all types of nationalism. All types of nationalism are cavemanish and stupid. But it is fascinating to think. It is fascinating to think. It's sort of taking the idea of nationalism to its furthest extent. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It is. And there is, literally, like you said, historical, proven thing that works. But I think, once again, going back to the topic of how people might view this movie, again, if you're that sort of person who's a conservative and a white supremacist, or has white supremacist thoughts, then they're going to say, look, they're trying to, integrate us into their own culture and their own color or whatever. And yeah, this could then again goes into the territory of being a white supremacist movie.
I think so. Yes, there is that. Because, this is the thing. It becomes white supremacist propaganda if it just makes them afraid. And anything that makes them afraid motivates them to think evil thoughts.
Yeah.
Because they're scared of difference. Anyway, let's just wrap up this story. There's a funny scene when when David comes back home and finds Pollux peeking through the window, looking at his daughter while she's showering, and he beats his ass. He has the dog bite his leg while David is kicking Pollux on the ground, saying, "You monster, you animal, you demon," and stuff like that. And Lucy runs out and says, "Dad, stop, leave him alone." And Lucy says, "Oh, Pollux, let's try to help you get cleaned up." And then Pollux sees Lucy's supple titties, and Pollux just loses his mind. He starts running into the field and kicking out all the plants, screaming, "We will kill you! We will kill you!" And Lucy and David are just looking like, what did you think of that scene?
Yeah, once again, this was a scene where it felt like this was white supremacist propaganda, because it made it look like, oh, all black people want to kill white people. And yeah, that's what it looked like. Yeah. And if you're not looking through that lens, then yeah, it also feels once again like this, I guess, the dynamic that you talked about, there will have to be the rape of white women in order to bring it down, or that maybe they don't want white people unless they are connected to them in a way.
Yeah, I don't know. That was a crazy scene. Very disturbing scene. It did feel like the most explicitly, anti-black or racist part of the film because they didn't have to make Pollux mentally insane.
We don't know if he's mentally insane.
The guy got caught and beat up and then just started screaming and ranting, "We kill you, we kill you."
Yeah, it's a little kid that just got beat by a white dude.
He might be very uneducated. He might not have the language capacity, but everybody says, I think even Petrus says it himself, like, that boy ain't right. He ain't okay. So it gives you the impression that he's not mentally there. So they didn't have to do that, but the fact that they made him crazy, I think, is kind of anti-black and a bit racist in this film. Because he could have been more sane.
I think both of them are anti-black.
You think so?
I don't really see the difference whether he's insane or not.
Yeah. Okay. What else is missing in the story? Oh, Petrus is confronted by David, and David says, "Listen, man, this is getting out of control. She's pregnant, and she's about to have the baby. Plus, you knew Pollux at the party. You lied to me." And Petrus replies, "You protect your children, and I protect my children. The boy is a child. He will marry Lucy, but not yet. So I will marry Lucy." And what did you think of that? Because Petrus is saying, "I will marry her, and we will have our land together. I will protect her and make sure she is safe."
Yeah, I thought that was evil. Like, not gonna lie, I like Petrus. I don't know why. He's just like a funny dude. Like, he's always smiling.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, it just felt like he's taken advantage of Lucy's vulnerability in that environment.
Exactly. He's definitely taking advantage of her, and also he's trying to make her one with the land. On one hand, I see this film as, showing how exploitative capitalism can be and how there is no freedom for women under capitalism because, Lucy just traded one exploiter, her father, and, that stuff that she was trying to get away from by moving to the countryside, for another. And in this case, it's a black rural farmer who says, "You will be my wife to make sure you do not get raped by my crazy autistic cousin." Whatever. You get what I'm saying?
Which makes you think, like, was Petrus in on it from the beginning? Like, did he make them do it?
Yeah.
Just to be able to, like, buy Lucy's land?
Yeah. And so then David tells Lucy, "Did you hear what Petrus is planning? He says that you're going to get married to him and then marry Pollux and stuff like that." And I'm telling him, "This is crazy." And Lucy says, "Well, tell him, once we get married, I get to keep my house and he gets to keep my land, but no more." Now go and run and tell that. And David is like, "What the hell is going on here? I can't deal. Yeah. And then he decides to leave and go lay up with Bev. Who, by the way, there's a side story where he starts sleeping with Bev that we didn't even cover. There's no point. There's no point in talking about that.
I think I feel like it just sort of represents how David was kind of like learning his lesson, or seemed like he was learning a lesson by actually having a real relationship that is with someone his age and his league and all the stuff that Red Pill talks about.
I just feel like it was still a bit empty and shallow. Bev was like cheating on maybe her husband. She has a guy. It didn't feel like it moved the story forward. It didn't have to happen.
But anyway, going back to like the conversation between Lucy and David there. Lucy also said, like, this child, it will be also protected by Petrus because the child will be also their family, and then Lucy will have to be automatically their family as well. So I feel like she was also thinking about her child's safety as well, whether if her child was a girl or a boy. So yeah, and it could have been a problem maybe if Lucy was just on her own without any protection. She doesn't trust his father. And she doesn't want to be with men because she's a lesbian, so it felt like for her it's the most logical thing that she could do, that she wouldn't live with Petrus, she wouldn't sleep with Petrus, that she would only have this legal protection. But I feel like she was also giving a lot away financially. Like the deal just seemed off. I don't know.
But once again, she wants to own the land. I think that's what it is. She wants to still have ownership. And for the sake of ownership, she's willing to forsake much of herself. And even bring a person into this world for the sake of saying that she owned the land and she was in control and had power. I find that to be very craven to a large degree. And I also think about this quote that Petrus said earlier when David asked him, why would you want a boy instead of a girl if you have a baby? And Petrus says, girl, no, too much money. Once again, I think Petrus is a villain in a lot of ways because he is really thinking about power, ownership, land, money. And Lucy is too, but it's at the forefront of Petrus's mind, maybe more than hers, I would say.
Yeah, and also just like the movie plays with this idea of everything that happened to Lucy, is it justified or not?
Yeah.
I feel like movie plays with that idea, even though we see Lucy really in pain and we see different things about the relationship between Lucy and this community there. But yeah, it's like, as a white woman, Lucy owing certain things, and then also, for example, Petrus feeling entitled to do certain things because she's a white woman.
Because she's a woman, I would say. But yeah, also because she's a white woman and he's here to collect a debt as Lucy.
Like from the ancestors.
Yeah, from the ancestors.
Debt.
The ancestors.
Yeah.
I'm just going to wrap it up with this. There's a scene when David comes to Lucy and says, it's a disgrace, a humiliation how we ended up like dogs. And then Lucy replies, yeah, like dogs. And then David goes and moves out. He stays with Bev or something. He's still killing dogs at the kennel, when nobody wants to accept them. And he ends up killing one very cute dog that used to be his close friend. He used to hang out with all the time. And when he kills that dog, I felt like symbolically he had let go of his conception of the dog, which is the dog follows its own nature. And if a dog can't follow its own nature, it doesn't deserve to live. And by making this sacrifice, I would say, of killing the dog, his attachment to it, he finally let go of that idea of nature dictates me. No, I dictate nature. And when I think about how Lucy said, yeah, we're just like dogs, her conception of the dog is more of the animal that lives in harmony with its environment, is maybe subjected to power and force and oppression by those that are more powerful, like other humans and stuff like that. But essentially, a dog just has to figure out how to survive as a part of nature rather than following nature as a way to feel its pleasure. You get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so I think there was a different conception of the dog. I thought the dog was a major metaphor throughout this film, and very powerful way to close it as, killing of the dog is one of the last things we see. So, any comments?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like when David said that line to Lucy, I felt like he was projecting because he still kind of admitted that he still acts on his impulse. He still acts on his instincts, and he doesn't know where the instincts come from. But he's learning now where his instincts are coming from a little bit, even though I guess we don't really think it's that sincere. So yeah, and then when he, I guess for me, when he killed his friend dog, it was now I know where my desires and my instincts come from. I am not like this dog that I used to be, in a way, and then accepts, because now he knows where his desires and his emotions come from. He sort of accepts Lucy as she is, because at least it makes sense to him.
Yeah.
How everything resolves in his mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think like Lucy doesn't see dogs as derogatory as he does.
Yeah, is exactly a different conception of the dog. She views dogs as sort of natural and in peace, and he views dogs as following their if they can't follow their nature, they're somehow doing something wrong. And that's a big difference in view of life. So yeah, that's pretty much the movie. This is a very in-depth conversation.
Intense.
And very in-depth and intense, yeah. There's a feminist critique to have of this film, a Marxist critique, a racial sort of historical critique to have, cultural critique of this film. So many ways to analyze what I think is a very, very good film. Honestly, it might not be the best acted or the best directed, but it has some of the best theme making I think I've seen in any of the films we've ever covered.
Yeah.
And it has so much meat in it to break apart that I find fascinating. So that's why I love this.
It is, yeah. I think one comment on Letterboxd, like one person said that this movie doesn't really take cinematography that seriously, but it takes themes more seriously, and it definitely does. Like it just like it goes from one theme to another. There's constant question marks that I think the audience has, especially if you talk about the movie. More questions like appear.
More theories appear. I think you could have a lot of theories about this film. And while cinematography might not be that important in this movie, the most important shot is the final one when they're zooming out and you just see the two houses back and forth. Lucy's larger farmhouse and Petrus's smaller little shack that he's building that seems to get wider and wider in this valley in South Africa, right? Showing that this is really, one story out of many in this very large country where land is such an important issue.
It shows a lot of things. Like, it shows that. It shows a lot of nature, right? It's like they're in the middle of the wilderness, which is also another theme, like this animal instinct versus civilized, person. Shows like this oppositeness of the two houses, that somehow these are two technically legally husband and wives that are like apart from each other, and there are certain things that put them apart, like race, like gender, like history, whatever. So it tells a lot of things.
It does. So final scores, I'm giving this a 9. I give it a 9. It gets better upon review. There are some very cringe moments, cringe dialogue moments, like Melanie's boyfriend. Every time he's on screen, he is one of the worst actors. Melanie herself is not that great of an actor. But John Malkovich does well. Jessica Haynes does well. Eric Ebune does well, I would say. They carry the film and they make it believable and moving and thought-provoking. Could this film have been made in a better way? Absolutely. But am I disappointed with how it came out? Not at all. Love it.
Yeah. I haven't read the book, but if this is a movie, I think the book would be also really good. But yeah, I think my final score is gonna be an 8. And like you said, I overall really enjoy talking and thinking about this movie. It raises a lot of important questions about humanity, about the systems around us, and how we define them, how we view them. So that was really good. Like you said, some of the acting was weird. I personally don't really enjoy John Malkovich that much. He was good, like the story was good. So 8.
All right. Well, this has been episode 127 of Simon and Akdi Movie Reviews. We've been gone for a while, but hopefully this is a lot of meat for y'all to devour on as you hopefully get a good movie recommendation from us and enjoyed this breakdown. If you have any films you think we should review, put it in the comments section. We'll try to get to it. You'll be easy out there. Peace.